What is going on, my friend? It is Danny here from projectmaniverse.com, real world technical project management for beginners. And today I'm going to give you some benefits of having a scope document. I'll briefly explain what a scope document is. I'll say why it's important you understand this as a project manager, and then I'll jump into the benefits. So let's get started. First of all, what is a project scope document? Well, the project scope document is quite a fundamental document for any project. And what it does, it basically describes everything that the project is going to do. And when you start doing your scope document or your first version of it, that description can be quite high level, but it will capture everything that your project is doing. And it's a really good way of setting boundaries of the project as well and framing what you are doing. So everything that you do at any time in your project should be able to trace to the scope document. So either a paragraph or a section or a sentence, if you're doing something on your project, it should trace back to either being included in the scope document as work that has been captured, or it enables that work to be done. So it has to link back to that scope document. So that's what the scope document is. As I say, it includes everything that your project is doing, and often you want to include an out of scope section that calls out all the key things that your project is not delivering that people may think you are on the hook for delivering. So you want to make that clear if you're not going to be doing something that is in there to avoid trouble down the line. So that's what the scope document is. So why should you care about the scope document as a project manager? Why is it important? Well, number one, it's a fundamental tool for any project manager, and it's very common across all industries of project management or methodologies of project management. So you'll be expected to know what it is and how to create one, and it is a project manager responsibility to do the scope document. It doesn't usually fall to anyone else. Maybe you'll have some BA support, but it's generally a project manager responsibility, and you should really understand the scope document and what is in scope of the project. You want to make sure you're very clear on that. So that's the first reason. The second reason is the foundation of everything. Without understanding the scope of what you're delivering, you can't really go to the next step. You can't define the requirements because you don't know what the boundaries of the project are. You don't know what the framework is. You can't do the design document. You can't really progress until you understand what the project is supposed to be delivering. So it is the first step. Now, the next reason why it's important for a project manager, that it is a secret weapon for project managers. It's one of my secret weapons, and I'll explain why when I get to the benefits section. But believe me, it's very subtle, and not many project managers realize this, and not many project managers use the scope document enough. But it is a secret weapon, and it brings a lot of power to your project, and it does de-risk the project significantly and increases the chance of success of your project significantly for various reasons. So that's why you should care about this as a project manager. So let's now move on to the benefits of the scope document. Now, the first benefit of the scope document is that it's very good at preventing scope creep. Now, you may have heard that expression, scope creep. It's basically when you're doing your project and you're finding you're taking on more tasks, more work, delivering more things that you weren't originally on the hook for delivering. It wasn't really discussed at the start of the project, but now you seem to be taking on more activity. Now, that is very frustrating as a project manager because number one, it eats away at your time, it impacts your plan, and it usually results in more money. And if you haven't got your scope document correct from the start, that scope creep can come in, and you can't really, it's hard to stop it sometimes because politics gets in the way, and there's various reasons why you can't really stand on your own 2 feet and push back and say, no, we're not doing that. But the scope document really helps you with that. As I mentioned, if you do it right at the start in the scope document, you can say what is out of scope of your project. Obviously, you can't include everything that's out of scope because the list would go on forever, but you can include key things that you think people might think you are on the hook for delivering, and you'll get a sense of what those things are as you become more experienced as a project manager, but you can do that. Another thing you can do is just make sure that all the key stakeholders on the project that are going to have an interest in it have a chance to look at the scope document while it's being developed. They get to read it. they get to contribute and ask questions, and they sign off the document as well, and they approve it. Or if they don't feel they should approve it, you need to get that in writing from them, some kind of confirmation that they don't think they need to sign off the document. And that's fine, but that just means that they don't get a chance to add to the scope or dispute the scope in the future if they are going to do that. But if you have done all those things, you've got a nice scope document, very clear what's in scope, it's very crystal clear what's out of scope, and you've got all the stakeholders involved in that process, and they've all signed it off and it's all documented. If new scope comes along down the line, then you can push back and say, nope, sorry, that if you want to do that, it's going to take a change request. You're going to have to raise the change request, explain exactly why you want it, why is it so important that you have this thing, and then we will do an impact assessment on that change request, and it's going to impact the plan in this way. We'll have to stop doing this work, we'll need this much more resource, which will cost this much more money, and then that decision will ultimately go up to a higher level to make, or they will just give up and not and just be put off by having to raise a change request. So it's a very good tool for stopping that scope creep, which is just a distraction to you delivering your main scope, your agreed scope, to the plan. Because once you know what your scope is, you know how it's going to be built, you create your plan, and that's pretty much all you have time to do. When you start bringing in more scope, then that distracts from your plan, it puts your main plan at risk, and you do not want that. Okay, so that's benefit number one. Benefit number two is the scope document gives you a lot of confidence and clarity as a project manager. And that is what you want as a project manager. You want to be confident in what you are doing. And if you don't have a clear scope, it's very foggy, it's very vague in terms of what you are doing. You always have that underlying sense of vagueness, and it's an underlying anxiety that's always there, and that will impact your performance as a project manager. It will impact how quickly you work on things, it will impact how quickly you make decisions, it will impact your manner in front of your stakeholders and your team. But if you are very clear on the scope of your project and what you are on the hook for delivering, and it's unequivocal, then that gives you confidence and it makes you a more effective project manager. So it's a hidden benefit. It's one of those secret weapon things I talked about earlier. But if you're very clear on your scope, you know it inside out, and you are confident you can stand behind it, and you've gone through the right governance to protect your scope, that gives you a lot of confidence and it makes you a more effective project manager. Remember the rules of the project manager, the prime directive: you want to bring order from chaos, and you want to bring clarity from the nebulae. That's the prime directive of the project manager, and the scope document will do that. So that's the second benefit of having a good scope document. The third benefit of a good scope document is it's a very useful tool for helping you to prioritize if you have to think about priority calls and what you should be doing. Now, your plan should really tell you that. But if there's any ever question in terms of should we be doing this or should we not be doing it, just go back to that first point I raised about, is that piece of work or that activity, can it be traced back to the scope document? Is it part of what the scope document is saying you're going to deliver, or does it enable you delivering that part of the scope? If the answer is no to both of those questions, then you shouldn't be doing that. So you can very quickly use the scope document as a tool to get confirmation or satisfy yourself in terms of your decisions about when you should not be doing work. Because if the work is not on your plan and it's not on the scope document, then you shouldn't be doing it unless it's an enabler or it's de-risking something on the plan. Okay, now the last benefit I'm going to talk about is another hidden one, the secret weapon part. It's similar to the second point where it gives you confidence and clarity as a PM, but it also gives your team a lot of clarity and confidence as well. I see this a lot when you have disgruntled team members that aren't very enthusiastic and they're feeling a bit despondent and they're not really firing all cylinders, not really behind the project, and you just don't have that oomph behind the team members. It's often because they're not very clear on what you're doing on the project, and there's two tools that you really need to be able to get that enthusiasm from your team. Number one is a very good plan. Number two, sorry, my lights have gone out there, let's put that back on. Yeah, number one is a very good plan, and number two is a very clear scope, because again, it will give them confidence that we know exactly what we're doing, they know what they need to do, and they understand how it all fits into the plan, and it gives them confidence into you as a project manager as well, that you're going to lead them in the right direction, and There's no doubt in terms of what they should be doing. It's very clear. Again, that fogginess, you want to avoid that vagueness, that feeling of we're not quite clear on what we're doing here or what the end goal is or what it really looks like. You want to eliminate that and bring clarity from the nebulae, and the scope document will do that. So what I do, I like to have a scope on a page, a summarized version of the scope that fits on one page and it's broken down like one of those investment diagrams when you've got a portfolio of stocks or crypto, and the bigger the shape, the more money you've got invested in it. I like to do that with a scope on a page. So if something is quite a big piece of scope, like a big part of the technical piece of work that you're doing, like the upgrade part of it, that will take more room up on that scope on a page, and the smaller things will take up smaller room. But it's a nice way to visualize what we're doing, and I can bring that up in every project working group, every week, or sometimes every day, and just keep getting the team to look at that together. And that's like our vision for the project. That, along with a project plan, are really, really good tools for creating that sense of confidence in your team. And once you have that, you can start to get that momentum in your team, that enthusiasm, and that sense of we're all trying to achieve this and we're going to make it work together. That team spirit that makes projects successful, the key ingredient to make a project really great and make sure it delivers on time to budget, is having a good team that's all united, cohesive, working well together, and they're all going the extra mile because they believe in the project and they know exactly what they are doing, and this scope document will help. I'm really hammering this point because it's really important, because I learned these things over years of project management, and it's like a hidden gem that people don't realize, and I'm really trying to stress the point, because if you just do it, it will put you at such a huge advantage. So get your scope on a page sorted after you've got the main scope document all documented and signed off and done properly. Then get a summarized version of that and keeping it updated. That's the key thing as well. Make sure you're managing your scope doc and keeping it updated at all times. If any CRs come along and it has to be amended. Okay, that is basically the video, so I'm going to end there. Give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. If you want to see more videos like this one, hit the thumbs up button. Hit the subscribe button rather. I'm doing daily videos all about technical project management, so if you are new to project management, this will really benefit you and your development. Okay, until tomorrow, please take care.